tonight.
USA! USA!
Marching on Michigan. Armed and ready, protesters rallied to end the shelter-in-place orders. Plus,
we're going to fast-track it like you've never seen before.
Operation Warp Speed and the race for a vaccine. This,
yes, I have.
As the president points to a lab in China as the origin of the coronavirus pandemic and washing his hands.
No, it is not true. I'm saying unequivocally, it never happened.
Joe Biden flatly denies sexual assault allegations from a former Senate aide. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Could threats from the president lead to another trade war with China? Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. Tonight, President Trump is taking aim at China over the outbreak.
That's right. He's now speculating the Chinese could have unleashed the coronavirus. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us now to explain what's behind the president's accusations. Ben?
Well, John and Jenna, President Trump said he's seen the evidence to support the theory that this all began in a Wuhan lab. He said that it could, quite frankly, have been a mistake, but also possibly it was intentional.
I think China's been trying to be, or at least they seem to be trying to be somewhat transparent with us, but we're going to find out. You'll be learning in the not too distant future. But it's a terrible thing that happened. Whether they made a mistake or whether it started off as a mistake and then they made another one, or did somebody do something on purpose?
And aside from China, President Trump has also been touting encouraging results about remdesivir, an antiviral drug designed to fight COVID-19. Earlier this week, we heard from Dr. Anthony Fauci, who said early results do show that it does, in fact, block the virus. So as we wait for some sort of a treatment, today we heard for the first time from White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, and she said she's been turning to her faith to the lives lost for COVID-19. Take a listen.
We grieve for the American lives. We've said that repeatedly. I will echo that today. My heart breaks for those. I pray regularly for those who are affected by the coronavirus.
Now, the White House social distancing guidelines did expire yesterday. So today it is up to the governors to decide what is best for their states. John, Jenna?
All right, White House correspondent Ben Kennedy, thank you. Well, there are high hopes for remdesivir as a possible treatment, as the European Union is looking to fast-track the drug. This after Dr. Anthony Fauci, as Ben mentioned, praised it earlier this week. CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson joins us now to talk about it. Lori, good to have you. Happy Friday. So talk about what is remdesivir and how exactly it works.
Well, as Ben mentioned, remdesivir is an antiviral medication, and a lot of folks have heard that phrase before, antiviral, because many people are familiar with another antiviral called Tamiflu, which is the antiviral medication used to treat the flu. So this antiviral, remdesivir, is an IV infusion, and it's given once a day for 5 days in a medical setting. And among people, it was given to people who are very, very ill, people who were in the hospital. And among the people who were given it, they recovered 4 days earlier than the people who were not given it. Their death rate was 8% compared to 11% to the people who weren't given it. So those results, as Dr. Anthony Fauci said, are very encouraging. Again, these folks were very sick, 8% death rate to 11% death rate. It'll be interesting to see what remdesivir does for people who aren't quite as ill, because the way we know remdesivir works is it blocks the virus from entering the cell and replicating. So we really like to get that antiviral in there as soon as possible. For example, with Tamiflu, doctors like us to take that about a day after we start having symptoms, because we want to try to catch it before the virus has a chance to replicate a lot in our bodies. So right now, the FDA and the federal government are working to get this drug out to as many people who need it as quickly as possible. So they're working on sending it out to hospitals that have some of the most severe cases and in some of the hot spots. And probably by this time next month, there will be enough out there for 140 patients. By October, about 500,000, and by the first of the year, 1 million patients.
Lori, we know that there are a lot of other treatments currently being explored. When will we learn more? When will those studies conclude?
Well, the great thing, John, is this is going to be happening a lot. We know that there are 200 different drugs being looked at as possible treatments for COVID-19. And so remdesivir was just one of the very first ones being studied. And so we have studies right now on hydroxychloroquine, which we've been hearing so much about, convalescent plasma, and then these monoclonal antibodies, which are really exciting because these are the drugs that can help tamp down the so-called cytokine storm, the immune system overreaction that we see is so deadly in some of our patients because when the immune system overreacts and really goes awry, it starts attacking organs and can even lead to death. So it'll be really great to see how these compare to remdesivir, and it may end up being that these, in addition to remdesivir, are going to really hit that sweet spot as far as treatment.
Yeah, Lori, just a few seconds left here, but where are we on a vaccine?
It looks like it's between the United States and China right now. It really is a race right now. Operation Warp Speed. Time is of the essence. We really don't want China to beat us out as far as coming up with the vaccine first, because not only does the winner of the race get bragging rights, but they get to control the supply. And the last thing we want is for China to be controlling the vaccine. So it looks like before the vaccine is even approved here in America, we might start making a lot of it so that when it is approved, we already have a lot ready to go.
All right, CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson. Thanks so much, Lori.
My pleasure.
Well, 2 Southern California cities are suing Governor Gavin Newsom for closing beaches in Orange County.
This coming as local officials praise the people there for how they behaved along the shore this last weekend. Here is an aerial image released by the Newport Beach Police Department showing beachgoers on Saturday. Police and lifeguards say overwhelmingly the majority of people there were either families or they were practicing social distancing. Reports indicate the governor considered closing all beaches, but singled out Orange County instead. And in Michigan, a large crowd turned out to protest the governor there, who they say is guilty of government overreach. Jennifer Wishon has that story.
Despite protests by hundreds of Michiganders at the state capitol Thursday, and efforts by the Republican-controlled House and Senate to stop her, Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed 3 new executive orders Thursday, extending the state's emergency and disaster declarations through the end of May, saying scientific data shows the state isn't out of the woods yet.
Can't put a hard and fast timeline because a lot of this depends on human behavior and our ability to observe these best practices.
Some residents see it as government overreach and a power grab.
I've had enough of being told what I can and cannot do. I've had enough of worrying about bills and making money.
No, especially a politician, has the right to devalue an individual by labeling them non-essential.
There were tense moments. State Senator Dana Polhanke tweeting, "Directly above me, men with rifles yelling at us. Some of my colleagues who own bulletproof vests are wearing them." Michigan has been hit hard, registering more than 40,000 cases, suffering nearly 3,700 deaths. But not everyone buys the numbers.
I do think that we have a virus, but I do think that the numbers are inflated. I think it's all political.
Republicans who control the legislature think the governor is overstepping her authority.
At this point in the COVID crisis, what can the governor accomplish alone that she can't do together with the leadership of the House and the Senate?
The State House passed a resolution authorizing the House Speaker to seek legal action against the governor for her conduct during the pandemic. She's facing a number of lawsuits, including one by 5 businesses arguing her pandemic-related executive orders have shuttered civil society, placed 10 million people under house arrest, and taking jobs away from nearly 1.2 million people, all without due process of law.
My husband's an electrician, and he cannot go back to work supposedly until May 7th, as long as that goes through, but he can go out on a golf course as of today. I don't think it's fair to start making those provisions.
It is very important that we as Americans stand up for our Constitution and for our civil liberties, because as we know, government continues to take and take.
Governor Whitmer says she hopes to reopen certain sectors of the economy in the days ahead. But for now, she faces a political battle over government power. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
On the campaign trail, today we finally heard from former Vice President Joe Biden on a decades-old sexual assault allegation.
That allegation comes from a former staffer during Biden's time in the Senate. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson joins us now with more on Biden's response. Abigail?
Well, Joe Biden is unequivocally denying he sexually assaulted former Senate staffer Tara Reade nearly 30 years ago, nor does he remember any complaint she may have filed against him.
It is not true. I'm saying unequivocally, it never happened. And it didn't. It never happened.
In an interview with MSNBC's Mika Brzezinski, Biden walked a fine line of standing by his prior words to believe all women while refuting Reade's accusations against him.
Look, from the very beginning, I've said believing women means taking the woman's claims seriously when she steps forward and then vet it. Look into it. That's true in this case as well. Women have a right to be heard, and the press should rigorously investigate claims they make. I'll always uphold that principle. But in the end, in every case, the truth is what matters. And in this case, the truth is the claims are false.
And when asked if he regrets what he said during the Kavanaugh hearings, Biden responded,
"What I said during the Kavanaugh hearings was that she had a right to be heard. And the fact that she came forward, the presumption would be she's telling the truth unless it's proved she wasn't telling the truth."
Biden is asking that the National Archives release any complaint Reade may have filed against him 27 years ago.
I am absolutely positive that no one that I'm aware of ever has been made aware of any complaint, a formal complaint made by or a complaint by Tara Reade against me at the time this allegedly happened 27 years ago, or until I announced for I guess it was in April or May of this year.
Reade claims the assault occurred when she was a 29-year-old staff assistant for Senator Biden. One day, she was asked to bring Biden his gym bag, but when she found him in a corridor of a Senate office building, she says this happened.
I was up against the wall, and I remember his hands underneath my blouse and underneath my skirt as he was trying to kiss me, and I was pulling away.
Afterwards, Reade says she told superiors that Biden made her feel uncomfortable, but she did not mention the assault. According to Reade, she was then forced out of her job.
While no former Senate staffers have corroborated Reade's story, she's been backed by 2 friends and her brother. Back to you, John and Jenna.
All right, Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson, thank you. Coming up, why Democrats are standing with Biden. We discuss with our Faith Nation political panel.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crabb Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religion he has, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
Welcome back. Time now for our Faith Nation political panel. Joining us are The Hill's Julia Manchester and CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody. Both of you, good to have you. Happy Friday. David, Joe Biden today said unequivocally he did not sexually assault Tara Reade. How does his denial go far enough?
Well, he's going to have to continue to talk about this, Jenna. I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, it was a train wreck. It was an absolute train wreck. When Mika Brzezinski actually asked Joe Biden a question of what you would say to Tara Reade, he said it was irrelevant. That's what he said. That was the word he used. It was irrelevant. Irrelevant? Really? There's that. Plus, he said this is complicated. He said there's complications about some of these sexual assault allegations. And then he wanted transparency, but he won't let anyone get into those sealed documents at the University of Delaware. So he's got, as they say, some explaining to do, and he's going to do a lot of it between now and November.
Julia, on the flip side, the Trump campaign issued a response saying Joe Biden, quote, dug himself deeper in a hole and exposed a different standard for him, for Democrats and women's groups. What kinds of issues does that response present for Donald Trump, who faces sexual allegations of his own?
It creates quite a bit of issues for Donald Trump. You know, not only does Donald Trump face sexual assault allegations from over 20 women, Donald Trump has been heard on tape bragging about sexually assaulting women. So, you know, President Trump has to tread very carefully on this. I think what you're going to see Republicans and the Trump campaign do is try to push this double standard. You know, they're going to bring up the Kavanaugh hearings and how they really push the investigations for those accusations into the then Supreme Court nominee. So you're not going to hear them necessarily going after Joe Biden on sexual assault or sexual misconduct allegations itself. You're going to hear them go after them on this double standard from Democrats and the mainstream media.
David and Julia, let's get your take on two separate polls we have here. The first is a Hill and Harris poll, which fell within the margin of error. Digging deeper, though, Trump has a 5-point lead with male voters. Biden has an 8-point lead with women. Data from another PRRI shows Trump's favorability among white evangelical Protestants slipped from March to April, 77% to 66%. What do these portend for Trump's re-election bid? Julia and then David.
You know, I think among men and women, that's not necessarily that surprising for me. Women do tend to vote more democratically, while men, probably majority, tend to vote more on the Republican ticket. However, with that white evangelical segment of the response pool there, that probably, I would think, would raise some alarm bells for President Trump right now. You know, I'm not saying that the majority of white evangelical Protestants are suddenly going to flip and vote for Biden, but I think the fact that they're not, you know, coming, if they don't turn out as well as they did in 2016 for Trump, that could spell trouble for him.
Yeah, David, your thoughts on the evangelical poll?
Yeah, let's start with this. Okay, first of all, this poll clearly is an outlier when it comes to white evangelical support. I mean, that 66% figure is out of nowhere. I mean, his figure has been up at 77%, 78%. You can make a case that maybe his figures dipped a little due to the coronavirus global pandemic. That's part of this. But look, I think it's an outlier, not to mention that PRRI, the Public Religion Research Institute, leans left. I don't think there's any question about that. And also, I went and did a deep dive into their methodology, and I don't want to geek out and bore everybody to death, but the bottom line is they have some issues within their methodology as to who they actually interviewed, how they interviewed them, and the people they were talking to inside each household. So, look, we know one thing about polls. Hillary Clinton was up double digits in October of 2016, and the last time I checked, she's not president of the United States. So hold tight on those polls.
All right, Julia, David, we'll have to leave it there. Julia Manchester with The Hill and CBN's David Brody. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
John.
Coming up, even with churches closed across the country, a new study finds the faith of many Americans has grown.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, And this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com to get your copy today.
Right now, churches are closed across the country, but many say their faith has grown during the COVID-19 pandemic. A quarter of all Americans say their religious strength has strengthened because of the outbreak. That's according to a new study from the Pew Research Center. Just 2% of those polled say their faith has grown weaker. Christians are more likely than any other religious group to say their faith has grown stronger during the coronavirus emergency.
And joining us for more on the new study is Greg Smith. He is the Associate Director of Research at Pew and oversees domestic polling on religion. Greg, it's great to have you back here.
Great to be with you.
Greg, the majority of Americans in this poll, 47%, say their faith hasn't changed much during the pandemic. Others say they weren't religious to begin with. So, Greg, for the quarter of Americans who claim it's stronger now, would you say they were already pretty strong in their sense of faith to begin with?
Absolutely. What the study shows is that about a quarter of American adults say their faith has grown stronger as a result of the outbreak. And that is really concentrated among people who were quite religious to begin with. We can see, for example, that about half of people who attend church at least once a week say their faith has grown stronger, as do about 4 in 10 people who attend religious services about once a month. Among those who attend religious services less often or not at all, far fewer say that their faith has grown stronger during this period.
Greg, I know denominational and demographic differences are at play here too. What groups have seen the biggest surge in religious faith?
Well, you know, the group that has the highest number of people who say their faith has grown stronger are those who belong to churches in the historically black Protestant tradition. More than half of those in the historically black Protestant tradition say their faith has grown stronger. We also see that about 4 in 10 evangelical Protestants tell us that their faith has grown stronger as a result of this crisis. Smaller shares of Catholics and those in mainline Protestant denominations say the same. And among those people who say they have no religion, very few say that their faith has grown stronger over the last few weeks.
Very interesting. About 3% of the people you polled say they were gathering in person for worship. We just talked about attendance earlier. How are the majority of Americans doing church now?
It's really interesting. The vast majority of people who attend religious services regularly say that their congregation is currently closed for public services. Their congregations are not holding in-person services. But 8 in 10 regularly attending Americans tell us that their congregation is holding virtual services instead. They tell us their church is streaming services or recording services so that congregants can participate virtually even though they can't gather in person.
And I got to ask you this, what was the most striking thing about the results that you found in the study?
I think the number one thing that jumped out at me is just how many more people there are who say their faith has been strengthened as a result of the outbreak than there are who say their faith has been weakened. Now, it's true that most people say their faith hasn't changed very much, but the share who say their faith has been strengthened is something like 12 times higher than the share who say that their faith has been weakened. So far more strengthening of faith in American life as a result of this outbreak than weakening.
Greg, we will be keeping tabs on your future studies. Greg Smith with the Pew Research Center, thank you again for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Still ahead, some sick beats that encourage healthy habits.
Don't resist this, get gone in an instant if you miss this.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
From Washington, D.C., uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody.
Escalating fight.
Jenna Browder.
Chose his words carefully.
Ben Kennedy.
Plan to join him.
And Amber Strong.
For impeachment grows a little bit louder.
Bringing you the political news that matters.
We get out and tell the story of the progress that we're making in this country.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6 on the CBN News Channel.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religion he have, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Finally tonight, while washing your hands is one of the best ways to stop the spread of germs, the 20-second process, let's be honest, can get old quick, especially if we're singing the happy birthday song.
Members of the hip-hop community are answering the call for some fresh hand-washing tunes you can add to your routine. Take a look.
You gotta be able to wash your hands like you never ever washed them before. 20 seconds or more. Try to wait.
American rapper Dougie Fresh rounded up familiar faces to remind listeners that we're currently in a state of emergency, but that simple habits could save lives by stopping the spread of the virus. A little creativity and a whole lot of hand washing go a long way in spreading joy, positivity, and healthy habits. John, what say you to these rappers?
Oh, I like it. It's better than the happy birthday song. And normally what I do, Jenna, is just count.
Yeah. What's your number?
About 20 to 30.
Yeah, that's good.
Good
That's
number.
good. All right, that is going to do it for Faith Nation this evening. Thank you for joining us.
Have a great weekend.